Hey guys, today we're going to be making a brain game on Scratch, and it's going to look something like this. So first it'll be a title screen, and then when you click on play, it'll show a new backdrop, and let's just answer these questions. So 7 times 5, 35, 11 times 10, 110, 12 times 2. Okay, so right now, every time you got it right, it showed a check mark. So for example, if we get it wrong, like I say 50, then it gives an X, and it also plays a different noise. And also, I have a score of 2, because I got 2 right and I got 1 wrong. And there's a timer on the left. So let's just wait for that to tick down. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and as soon as the timer reaches 0, it goes back to the home screen and it plays that noise. Cool, so let's go to Scratch and first create a new project. And unlike last time, we won't need a link because this is completely from scratch, no pun intended. Okay, so first things first, let's delete our cat sprite and let's add our backdrop. So in the example, it was a library, which is also known as room 1. And then I'm going to add our sprite, which was Giga. Not Giga Walking, Giga. And just center the sprite. Okay, so first in the code, we want to get, of course, our when green flag clicked. And first, let's create 2 variables. One called number1, and another one called number2. And in the brain game, we're going to be just multiplying numbers. You can add more operations, but that gets a little bit more complicated. So in this tutorial, we'll only be doing multiplication. So first, we want to get the 2 set number1 and set number2 blocks. Because at the beginning, we want to set these 2 numbers to something random. So I'm going to go to operators and get pick random for both of these. And I'll set it to somewhere between 2 and 12. So both of those numbers will be set to a random number between 2 and 12. And then it's going to ask us what is number 1 times number 2. Now in coding, to put a couple of numbers together, you have to use concatenation, which is basically what it's called when you're putting multiple strings or characters together. And to do that in Scratch, you have to use this join block. So I'm going to put number 1, and now we want a time sign in between, so I'm going to put an X for here, and let me get number 2. Now I can't put number 2 after this X. I'm going to have to get another join block and join number 1 times number 2 and put that all together and ask that question. Okay, next we're going to get an if-else block. We're going to check if, in operators, we're going to check if our number 1 times number 2 was answer. So let me put answer on this side, and that is in sensing. So we're going to have to get a multiplication operator and check if answer was indeed equal to number 1 times number 2. And if it was, for now, let's just do 2 things. Let's say correct, and if you get it right, and incorrect if you get it wrong. So let's test it out. Green flag asks you a random number question, and let's say we get it right to 36. Correct. Okay, and then everything stops because we haven't put the forever loop in yet. Okay, so now let's add the forever loop around all of this code so it does it continuously. And also let's set up a timer. So go to stage and create a variable called time. And we want to get the when green flag click block. And first we want to set timer or time to whatever we want our time to be. So let's say 20 seconds for now. And then let's get a repeat until loop. And in this loop, we're going to continuously decrease the time until it equals 0. So we're going to repeat until time equals 0. There we go. And what do we want to repeat? We want to, first of all, we want to wait 1 second. And then we want to decrease the time by 1. So change time by -1. And if we do this continuously, it's going to keep on decreasing the time by 1 until it equals 0. And it will start at 20. Now, when the timer actually reaches 0, we want to go to events and broadcast a message. You can use message 1, but I'm just going to make a new one called end so I know what I'm talking about here. Broadcast end, and then go back to Giga and then get the when I receive end block. And when it does, then we want it to go to control and stop all other scripts in Sprite. Now let's add a high score feature and also a score feature. So first let's go to variables and make two new variables, one called score and another called high score. And whenever we receive end, that means that the game has been finished. And also you can uncheck the boxes that you want to see. Okay, so when we receive end, that means the game is over. So that's when we want to check if our high score is equal to our score. But first, let's actually set our score to increase by 1 every time we get it correct. So let's change score by 1 right here. Simple enough. And then in the when I receive end, let's set high score to score. But only if our score that time was actually higher than our high score. So greater than, and if our score was greater than our high score, then we want to change our high score to meet that score. Okay, so now let's make our sprite react differently depending on if we get it right or if we get it wrong. So what I mean by react is the costume. So we can change the costume to be happy or mad depending on if we get it right or wrong. And we can set it back to the default when it's done reacting. So to change the costume, we go to looks and switch costume to Giga C for the happy one and Giga D for the mad one. And then we want to make sure we also switch back to the default when we're done, right here. Okay, now let's create the menu screen. So I'm going to add the play button first. So choose a new sprite and I'm just going to type in button. You can choose from any one of these. I'll choose this one and just put it right in the center. And I'll also go to costume so I can put in some text and write play right here. Let me move it over to the center. Also, I'm going to change its color. And I'm not going to be using this costume, so I'll just delete it. Okay, so first let's go to code, and then I'm also going to name this play right here. So when the green flag is clicked, first we want to show it, of course, because this is the first thing that we want to show. It's the menu screen. But when the play button itself is clicked, then we want to hide it, and let's broadcast a message that's called start. And now, instead of using when green flag clicked, we can use start. So that means whenever the play button has been pressed, then we want to start the game. Not when the green flag has been pressed. We can also add another backdrop for the menu screen. I'll choose stars, like so. Also, when green flag is clicked, we want to hide our Giga. So that's pretty self-explanatory. When green flag clicks, hide. And we want to switch our backdrops to stars when the green flag is clicked. So looks, switch backdrop to stars. And when it receives start, then we want to switch backdrop to our library, which is room 1. However, when we receive end, we want to switch it back to our menu screen. Also, for the Giga, we also want to do another thing for when it ends, which is we want to hide it once again. And for the play button, we want to show it once again when it ends. So we added quite a bit of code, so let's just test it out. So green flag hides everything but the play button, and it switches to stars. Play. Okay. It looks like our Giga is not showing. So let's go back to our Giga. Let's see. When I receive start, aha, so it never actually shows. So let's add this show block right here. Let's try it again. Play. Okay, now it shows. And then 48. You can see our timer is ticking down. Okay, everything worked except it looks like it didn't actually hide it. So I discovered that my Giga was actually not disappearing when I broadcasted end. And the reason for this was actually just because my computer's slow. But first of all, we want to change this when green flag clicked to when I receive start. So I set the timer to 2 just to make it faster. And it actually is not disappearing. And I checked the code and everything is perfectly in place. Like when I receive end and hide, it's quite simple and it just broadcasts end. But the reason it's not working is because I also have another piece of code right here. It says when I receive end, then do this and then stop other scripts and sprite. And that was the reason it's not working, because it actually stops this script right here before it can actually execute the hide function. So I could just take this block out completely, but the problem with that would be then this would continue going. So I decided that I can use a wait block right here, right before this, and wait like a very small amount of time, just to give the computer time to hide before it stops all scripts. So there we go, and everything. Okay, so we also let me first of all change my time back to 20. Now we can do some things with the play button. So I'm gonna go to the play button and go to its code, and when the green flag's clicked, instead of just showing it, I'm also gonna make it so that it does some special effects whenever your mouse hovers over it. So I'm gonna get a forever loop, and inside the forever loop, I'll check if mouse is hovering over it. So if touching mouse pointer, then we can go to looks and change some like fisheye effects on it, for example, by 25. And else, then we want to get the set fisheye effect back to 0. Now the reason you can't only use an if loop over here is because if you hover over it once, then it'll never go back to normal. It'll just stay like that forever. So let me try it again. Or sorry, it's not supposed to be changed. It's supposed to be set. It looks like that now. Nice. And just to make our game look better, just like we're hiding our sprite and our play button and our backdrop, switching between them whenever we start the game or whenever we stop it, we can also do the same thing with our variables. So I'm just going to go to stage. And along with this, when I receive start, switch backdrop to room 1, I'm also going to show variable high score and score and time. And then the exact opposite for when I receive end, hide, hide, hide. And I'll just duplicate this for when a green flag is clicked. So when the green flag is clicked, all the variables are hidden. When we click on the play button, they all start showing again. And then when it's over, then it will go back to hidden. Okay, next, let's add some graphics for whenever we get the question right or wrong. So I'm going to add, first of all, a new sprite, check, which is also known as button 4. And I'll get another sprite called X, which is button 5. And go to costumes in X and select the red costume. I'm going to duplicate this costume right here and paste it into that sprite. And now we have, instead of having 2 separate sprites with different costumes, we just have 1 sprite with different costumes. So I'm going to just delete this extra sprite here. Now, well, first of all, we want it to also fit in with the rest of the sprites in terms of like hiding and showing whenever the play button is clicked and whatnot. So when green flag clicked, we want them to hide. When we receive start, we want them to stay hidden. When we receive end, we want them to stay hidden. But when do we want to show them? When we answer a question. So first, let's broadcast some things when we answer a question. So when we get it correct, instead of saying correct, let's broadcast a message called correct, like so. New message called correct, and then when we get incorrect, let's broadcast new message called incorrect. And now we can use these broadcasts to show and hide them. So when I receive correct, then I want to switch costume to, let's see, which one is the check? Here, let me just rename them. So correct, incorrect. So when I receive correct, I want to switch costume to correct, and I want to hide it. And then let's wait 1 second, and then, or sorry, I don't want to hide it. I want to show it first, then wait 1 second, and then hide it. And the same thing for when I receive incorrect. I want to switch costume to incorrect, then show, then wait a second, then hide. So let's test it out. 24 shows correct. If you get it wrong, incorrect. Nice. Also, we don't need to say the word incorrect anymore, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Right now, our graphics are looking okay, but they just appear and disappear all of a sudden. So to make that a little bit more smoother, I'm going to animate the graphics. So first of all, I'm going to make a new block called animate, because I'll be using it twice, one time for the red one, or one time for the cross, one time for the check. So in this animate, first we want to just show the costume and then wait 1 second and hide the costume. But let's also add a little bit more effects to it. So before we show it, let's set a ghost effect, set ghost effect to 100. So it's very transparent and you can barely see at first. And then slowly, using a repeat loop, I'll set the repeat to 25 times, we can get another set color, or sorry, this time not set color, this time we'll get a change ghost effect by -5, which means it will become more and more seeable, so more and more opaque and less transparent. And then, so 25 times, or sorry, not -5, -4. And so 25 times -4 is -100. So if it starts at 100, minus 100, it'll end up at 0, so that means it will be completely opaque. And then let's make it disappear again. So let's add a wait block first, put 0.5 seconds, and then I'm just going to duplicate this over here and put it like that. And then this time we want to increase it by 4. So then it goes back to extremely transparent, and then we can just hide it. So now we can just use this animate block that we made and put it underneath the whenever switch costume to whatever, and just do animate. So let's play it now. If we get it correct, it slowly shows and then it disappears. If we get it incorrect, it slowly shows and then it disappears. One more thing, I'm just going to move it over because it's kind of overlapping right now. There we go. Okay, so now let's add some sounds and music in the background. So first, I'm just going to add a sound for whenever we get it correct or wrong. So in Giga, we're broadcasting correct right here. So we can just use that correct broadcast and make a sound with it. So let's see here. I'm going to start sound pop in the when I receive correct. And then when you get it incorrect, I'll, let's see here. Let's use laser. There we go, laser 1. And I'll start sound laser. And make sure you put it before animate, or else it's going to only play it after all the animation is done, which is going to sound a little bit delayed. So now that we have the sounds for our questions themselves, let's also add a sound, some music in the background. So let's go to stage, and then get the, right here in the when green flag is clicked, we can get a forever loop. And we can do play sound, let's see, we can do play sound Xylo 1. Make sure that you use the until done, or else it'll continuously repeat it at the beginning if you only use the start sound. Okay, so when you click on the green flag, it starts playing the music, and it continuously does it forever. Let's also add some sound for our timer. like a ticking sound. So every time we change time by 1 second, we can also play some ticking sound right there. So I'm just gonna go to sounds, choose a sound, and in the example, they actually use the music extension to get some noises, and the sound for this was actually a wood tap. So we're not going to be using the music extension for this project, but the closest we can get is this wood tap sound, which is not too bad itself. So wood tap, and I'll play sound wood tap, or sorry, start sound wood tap right here. And for whenever our time runs out completely, we can get the gong. Select it, and then right over here, we don't actually need to go to wherever we do end. We can just put it right here. Start sound gong. So let me just set the timer to 2 so you can quickly get to the end. And it plays the gong. There we go. And also, the background music is going on the entire time, even when the game is over. So you can change that if you want to, but I keep it like that. Okay, that's everything. So I'm just gonna set the timer back to 20, and let's do a run through. So green flag, it plays background music on a loop. When you hover your mouse over the play button, it also does a fisheye effect on it, and the menu screen starts with a starry backdrop, but when you click on the play button, it switches to a library. So first of all, the first thing you'll notice is the sprite, the Giga sprite, asking you a question, and there's also a timer clocking down in the background. So if we get it correct, then it gives you a check mark. If you get it incorrect, it gives you an X with a different noise. Also, our score and high score is showing up over here. So, oh, I just realized that our score and high score disappear at the very end, but that's okay. You can change that on your own. Also, make sure that you set your score to 0 at the beginning of each game. I forgot to do that as well. But those are just simple fixes that you can change on your own. Well, that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time. Bye.